UK government's plan to deport the first of many asylum seekers to Rwanda by air is set to take off on Tuesday, after the Court of Appeal refused to grant an urgent injunction to block the first flight.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
The court heard that 11 asylum seekers are set to be sent to the Central African country as part of the government's deportation strategy, described by Priti Patel as world-leading. Care for Calais, one of the NGOs bringing the legal challenge, said that the number is down to 8 people after some individuals had their deportation orders cancelled after lodging challenges over the weekend. Under the plans, Rwanda will take some of the asylum seekers arriving in Britain in exchange for development aid, a move that Patel has said will help deter future migrants from crossing to Britain by boat and undermine smuggling gangs. The contentious government policy has drawn fierce criticism from MPs, and a full-blown judicial review of the legality of the scheme is due to be heard by the High Court in July. It's a controversy which raises several questions of morality and ethics. But just how much is justice being violated? How justifiable are the British government's plans to send illegal immigrants to Rwanda?
So let's get to it. Should the UK halt the Rwanda deportation policy? Dear gentlemen, you know the rules. You each get 30 seconds to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we pick up the debate right after. So, David, please take the lead.
Well, first things first, it is a very, very real problem. People are dying. On Sunday, there were 600 refugees making this extremely dangerous journey. But yes, it's a serious problem, but this just is not the solution. I don't think you can even find a minister of the British government to justify this policy with a straight face. There's a reason why they're not going on TV and radio, is because they really can't justify it. Boris is in trouble, but this is not the answer.
Yes, we will get to all of the points you've mentioned in a bit. Jonathan, your take?
Effectively, this is a kind of people trafficking by the UK government. There is absolutely no justification for deporting, not just for processing, but actually deporting with no right to return to the UK, people whose only crime is to try and make a new life in Britain. The government says that there are safe and legal routes for them to try and cross, and this trafficking is not the only answer, but they have not provided any such safe and legal routes. There is no other way for people to get to Britain other than by legal means.
Well, last but not least, Phil, your thoughts?
Well, at the heart of all of this, it's all well and good, the other two gentlemen saying about how that they don't agree with this policy. But the bottom line is that this is about illegal migrants. Right. And unfortunately, we have to make sure that those who are coming to the UK are here in a safe and an understandable capacity to make sure that ultimately they can be integrated into the fabric of British society. And to just let them come willy-nilly, unfortunately, strikes me as ridiculous. So as far as I'm concerned, the word to remember is illegal, and therefore, yes, this is a good start.
And you know what, picking up from this point precisely, Phil, and dear gentlemen, please feel free to interact from this point onwards. The Court of Appeal clearly rejected the attempt to halt this flight. So why are we even having this debate? Is it an attempt to challenge the clear-cut court ruling? Is it an attempt to undermine democracy, Jonathan?
Well, no, because the court hasn't actually ruled on the legality of this process yet. They've simply stopped. They prevented the injunction of a couple of people. So they've stopped some people from going on the flight, but they've allowed other people to go on the flight. But it's going to be 4 or 5, maybe 7 people on this flight. So really, it's a PR move by the government to show the right-wing tabloids that they're taking this issue seriously. It's not a move to deal with the problem of people trafficking. And as I said before, this is not actually about solving a problem. The government could solve the problem instantly by offering safe and legal routes for people to claim asylum in Britain, which is a human right under international law. Britain's not doing that, and therefore it has to be an illegal route for people to choose to come to the UK.
But maybe it's not even an issue or just an issue of human rights. Maybe it's an issue of a sovereign state with sovereign borders, with stated rules that are being breached, and somewhat of sovereignty becoming a taboo, a country trying to enforce its own legislation. David?
Look, I think we here in Israel have had experience with this policy from 2014 to 2017. Many thousands of asylum seekers were sent exactly that to Rwanda. I think you'd be very, very hard pushed to find any senior government representative, past or present, that will sing the praises of this policy. It doesn't have any advocates because almost all of those refugees ended up leaving Rwanda and making their way up into Europe through different means. So, what matters is what works. This just seems a very, very expensive policy. There's £500,000 being spent on chartering an aeroplane, for 7 or 8 people. This is not going to put off asylum seekers. This is a very, very serious issue. Of course, these asylum seekers should probably claim refuge in the first free country they get to, which is France or Germany or Belgium or any of the countries. So this idea about they're desperate to come to the UK, they do find safe refuge before they come to the UK. But this actual policy, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and you've mentioned... please, Phil.
No, but hang on a second, gents. I'm sorry, but this is not even so much about whether or not this policy works or not. It's got to act, first and foremost, something has got to be done to deter this level of immigration, and illegal immigration at that, to the UK. The most important thing to remember here, no matter what side of the political fence you sit on, is that this is dangerous, okay? People are coming to the UK on dinghies that are less than suitable for crossing the channel with. I mean, I wouldn't even put them on the River Thames, never mind the English Channel.
Why is that? Why are they coming on those dinghies?
What, out of desperation, no one denies that. But the point is...
Do you think that they're... Do you think they're choosing to go on the dinghies? If they were allowed to come to Britain on a train or on a plane or on a ferry, do you think they would choose to come on the dinghies?
They might not choose to come on the dinghies, but the bottom line is, I'm not questioning whether or not people are desperate enough to come here or not. That's not the point here. The point is that people's lives are being put at risk because there is not enough to be done to stop people from allowing them to come on these dinghies in the first place. And surely that's got to be the bottom line here, is no matter what side of the political fence you sit on, people are losing their lives in a bid to try and come here, and that can't be right.
Right, and
yes, but this policy isn't the answer. That's the long and the short of it. If you've got a 200-seater aircraft and you can only put 7 people on it, that's hardly a deterrent. So it's simply a policy which doesn't work. If it was effective, then you can make a clear case for it. Yes, of course, these people are illegal. You're absolutely right, Jonathan. They shouldn't come over that way. They've tried to.
I'm sorry, but no one is illegal. There's no such thing as a legal
if you want a complete open policy, if you want to a complete open immigration policy, that's another discussion completely. But if you want a legal system, then of course they must be stopped from coming into the country illegally. There are legal ways of claiming asylum, and some of them might be economic migrants as well. Yes, of course, their situations are tragic, but this is a policy which just doesn't function. So I can't see any point in advocating for a policy where, for a 200-seat aircraft, you've got 7 people on it. How can that be claimed as a successful policy?
Yeah, Jonathan, please.
The reason why... Sorry, I was going to say the reason why there are only 7 on there, it's very simple. Forgive me, Jonathan, I'm sorry, but we've got to make this very clear at this stage. The reason why there are only 7 people allegedly on this flight at the moment is because that we have a justice system in the UK, which unfortunately means that when someone challenges something, a due process is put on hold as a result of actually sort of giving someone a fair trial. So this flight is going to take place regardless, but unfortunately a great number have been allowed to appeal their decision, or the decision that has been made to send them off to Rwanda, subsequently meaning that they are not going to be on that plane because there's a pause button. It doesn't mean it won't happen eventually.
Right, so that means the policy doesn't work. For whatever reason, the policy doesn't work. So what's the point of advocating a policy which is just ridiculous? You can't even, I was sharing this policy with a colleague in the office today, you can't even say it with a straight face. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, Jonathan, please, I see you really have something to say.
I find it completely mind-blowing that someone in Britain is arguing that a justice system which allows due process is somehow unfortunate. That is not a democratic stance to take. Okay, the vast majority of people who come to Britain to claim asylum, which is a legal right recognised by UK and international law, are in fact granted asylum. Okay.
Why are they not claiming asylum in France or in Belgium? That's the question. Why are they in the first safe country?
I'm sorry, David.
The first safe country they reach. If they are escaping for their lives, which many of them may be, why are they not claiming asylum in France?
Extremely solid claims. It's just difficult to hear all of you at the same time. So Jonathan, David was rightfully asking, why aren't they seeking asylum in the stops before reaching?
Okay, fine. There are any number of reasons for that. The first one might be that they don't speak, that they only speak English, or they have family ties in Britain, which are perfectly valid reasons to try and seek asylum in a country. And also, there's another fundamental point here. If we are saying that the country has to pass the buck, that to the country to the right of it, then France could say, well, you passed through Italy to get here, so Italy should be the first country. So then you end up with countries like Italy and Greece and Malta, the only countries that sort of the first countries that people might be coming to from Africa, have to take all those people. How is that a fair policy? Everyone
Jonathan,
in Europe
the bottom line is the argument. The argument when it comes to
other countries.
The argument when it comes to this is that people are saying the reason why that individuals try and make the treacherous crossing to come to the UK is because that they fear for their lives. It is a perfectly reasonable stance to take to suggest that when they reach mainland Europe, they are not in any sort of danger. So this is not about passing the buck. It's if the argument is going to be made that the reason why they're fleeing to the UK is because they fear for their lives. They cannot fear for their lives when they are in mainland Europe. So that's the argument.
Not the way the bill stands.
Yes.
That's your opinion.
Sorry, but that's the argument. No, but it's the argument is if I'm hearing someone argue to say that these individuals are fleeing for their lives.
Italy and Greece and Malta have to take all the refugees because that's the first country they arrive in. How is that fair?
Yes,
I'm saying that if the argument is that an individual is fleeing for their lives and they fear for their safety, why is it they're making a beeline for the UK? That's what I'm suggesting. Yes, it's not like their lives are in danger when they're on mainland Europe.
This argument was well heard here in Israel as well, as David mentioned, with asylum seekers crossing Sudan or Egypt before arriving in Israel.